Kelvin Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to talk specifically to clause 229, which is around the approval of codes of practice. Now, I'm assuming that a code of practice is a series of points which together basically lay out a blueprint to keep workers safe. And if we took, say, an industry such as the meat works, freezing works, and I think in particular the freezing works up north, within that freezing works there are a number of different roles, from an administrative role to people out in the stockyards to people who actually give a beast the lethal stun, through to the butchers, the people who skin it, the boners and everything. So there'll be different roles within a single industry, and I am wondering if the Minister could answer the question, do each of those particular roles have different codes of practice to ensure that those workers are kept safe? And I see that the Minister, it says in 29.1, the Minister may approve a code of practice developed by the regulator for the purposes of this Act. The Minister may amend or revoke an approved code of practice, but the Minister may only approve or revoke or amend only if he or she is satisfied that it's been amended or revoked or developed by a process that involves consultation between unions and employer organisations. Now, I think of the particular freezing works up north where the employer organisation absolutely hates unions, and they are absolutely opposed to anything the unions do. They don't want to listen. If there's any form of negotiation, they just like to walk away from those negotiations, basically leave the unions and the employees dangling. So that's just one point there that the Minister may approve if there's been consultation. However, if we move to 29.6, 5 and 6, basically the Minister then is able to make amendments without any consultation. It's basically saying that if a code of practice corresponds or substantially corresponds to a code of practice, then the Minister the following may be approved by the Minister without carrying out the consultation required. And I'd like to know what substantially corresponds with means. You know, we're talking about 99%. Is that a substantial corresponding, or 95%, 80%? Is it just the majority? So what does a code of practice that substantially corresponds to another code of practice actually mean? The Minister is able to make any minor or technical amendments to an approved code of practice on his or her own undertaking, and yet that code of practice, as I've said earlier, needs to be developed in consultation with unions and employers. So to me it's a bit disjointed that in one case there needs to be consultation around the development, the approval, the amending or the revoking of a code of practice, but on the other hand, further on in that same clause, the Minister is able to make basically unilateral decisions around that code of practice. 2296 says if the Minister approves any amendment in accordance with subsection 5B, the regulator must make reasonable efforts to notify any affected persons or their representatives of the amendment. But that's after the fact, when I believe that there should have been discussion, dialogue, consultation before the fact, before the Minister makes those changes. So, Mr. Chair, as I've said, I believe it's a bit disjointed, it's a bit out of sync there, those two clauses or sub-clauses in clause 229, and it would be good if the Minister could just clarify exactly why it is that in one instance the Minister must listen to consultation between the...
Call